Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm grateful that you came to hang out with me yet again for Wisdom on Wednesday, and I'm Ray. I appreciate you spending time with me yet another week. Give me a little bit of your day, give me a little bit of your attention, give me a little bit of your feedback. We appreciate you spending time. We appreciate you investing time. All of you who like, shared, and comment, subscribe to the video, we appreciate you so much. As per usual, spending some time with the Lord to make certain that I was sharing some things that will be pertinent to our circumstances, our situations, and some of our plights in life. Today, I wanted to make certain that we spoke about things like this. Wise people, it's okay for you to be repositioned. Wise people, it's okay to be repositioned. I enjoy a litany of hobbies. I enjoy bodybuilding. I enjoy going to the shooting range and spending some time at the range. And I also enjoy taking care of plants. Just because I have those things as my hobbies doesn't mean I'm good at any of them, but I enjoy taking care of plants. I enjoy bodybuilding, and I enjoy going to the range. But a few weeks ago, I had a plant that started out on the porch. I just added water to it daily. And what happened was, because the sunlight was in the perfect position, the plant was in the perfect position, and I didn't have to do much to it but to add some fertilizer to the water. But because of that, those three effects, the plant grew. It actually grew past the capacity of the pot that I purchased it in. And so I had a decision to make. Do I just be lazy and allow this pot to just keep this plant with all this potential in one spot? Or do I take the risk of cutting this pot that's too small off of this plant with all this potential so I can put it in a larger pot and actually see what can happen? So we did that. We went and purchased some potting soil so that the old soil would actually keep the substance of the plant. But the new soil would actually make the transition that much easier. So we grabbed a nice pot, a new pot, laid a bed of new fertilizer, and allowed the old pot to be cut off. So this plant with all this potential could be transplanted, repositioned. And then the process of moving that plant, I could actually see that I was a couple of weeks late, that some of the roots had started dying because the roots had potential, but they didn't have the source to continue to grow. They weren't able to reach the water source anymore because the pot that they were in was too small. So what happened is when I had the opportunity to transplant this plant to a new pot, the first week was a little weird. It was seeming like the two soils weren't mixing. It seemed like the plant was leaning inside the pot. So I contemplated putting a stick in there to actually firm up the foundation. But I didn't. So I said, I'm just going to let the process go. I'm going to leave it in the same spot so it gets the same sun. I'm going to keep my schedule of pouring water in, and I'm going to see what happens. And the very second week that I continued to allow it to stay in the same position, the next week that I allowed the water to remain on schedule, the soil started to blend and the pot started standing up straight. And I asked myself a question. Was it the fact that the plant was still getting the same amount of sunlight that allowed it to get stronger? Was it because the amount of water or the minerals in the water that actually helped it to grow? But I had this epiphany that plant would have withered if it would have stayed in that little pot. That some of us sometimes stay in small locations with small people, with small thinking far too long, and it kills our potential to go forward. Now, it doesn't mean that just because something is uncomfortable, you have to uproot and you have to leave. But the point I'm trying to make today is sometimes we were put in pots as young people and we became people pleasers. I'm going to take you on a story today. Hopefully you got a little bit of time. Some of us were responsible children. Some of us were what they will call good kids. Some of us were children that they would say we could babysit ourselves. Hit the like if you can relate. But what happens is when an older person puts a label on a child and calls them a good kid, they're basically saying that kid doesn't need as much attention as the other children. See where we're going? That child doesn't need as much affirmations as the other kids because they're responsible. And what happens to a child is when you tell them they're responsible and they don't need what the other children need, what happens is they accept neglect. And when they accept neglect, what happens is they become people pleasers because they want that affection. They want that adoration. They want those attaboys. They want those good job. I see you. So ultimately, the way you start out in a particular look like a plant in a small pot, because people saw your potential and they rewarded your potential, they neglected your growth. We all need love. We all need encouragement. We all need somebody to recognize that our pot's getting a little too small. We all need somebody to tend to our roots. We all need somebody to encourage us when we're down. We all need somebody to notice us. We need somebody to see us. Somebody that can say, I need to reposition them. They're in a position to where they're a child. I want to make certain that they remain a child as long as possible. Even though they're responsible, I want to make sure they know that I love them. I want to make sure that they know that I see them. I want to make sure that they recognize that just because you're more responsible than maybe your siblings and your cousins doesn't mean that you're no longer a child. And today, wise friends, I want to help us all grow out of that place, grow out of that label of being extra responsible and good, when ultimately the new label that we wear is people pleaser. Now we want the attention and the adoration of people. So now we're let down emotionally because we don't get back what we've been seeking for a very long time. If this podcast today is ringing a bell, just hit some likes in the chat. Say, this is my story today. Encourage me if you can. That sometimes when you're labeled, you need to come to the space where you know you can reposition even yourself. Some of us who've come out of the world into the marvelous light, as we like to say it, we're redeemed and we know Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, that he has given up himself so we can be repositioned. That some of those labels that people put on us, some of those labels that we put on ourselves, we no longer have to live by those labels. That we can be repositioned, we can be repurposed, we can be repotted, we can be replanted. And today I just want to encourage you that you don't have to live by the labels that were put on you as a child. You don't have to stay in that same box of feeling mediocre. When someone called you something out of anger, that doesn't have to stick to you. When somebody misused your time, somebody didn't do exactly what you thought they would do, and that's something that's lingered in your spirit all these years, and now you're still living out the effects of things that happened to you as a child, things that happened to you as a teenager, things that happened to you as an early 20s. You understand? There are some places and some things that happened decades ago, but ultimately we're still in the same position because we haven't healed and we haven't taken the opportunity to be repotted. We haven't taken the opportunity to be repositioned, because I'll tell you what happens. I'm no expert here, but I can only tell you my story. That sometimes people can recognize us that we're overgrown and we need to be pruned and we need somebody to tend to our leaves. And because we've lived in this place of isolation for so long, putting on the face so people can think we're really happy, but we're overgrown and need somebody to pay some attention to us. As soon as the gardener comes and tries to show the prunes, the shears to prune us, now we get offensive and think that somebody is intruding on our space. You see what happens when you live behind a label? When you live behind a label, it's difficult to allow people in to help you, to make you ready to get out of that small pot into your potential, to move from a space where you don't have to be afraid, carrying around all those old insecurities. Some of us are in spaces and places where we are what we would call fit or healthy now. But I remember being 12 years old, moving to a neighborhood where I had a whole bunch of grown bullies, and I was a little kid and they took my change every time I went to the store. And what happened to that, it messed up my security. I became insecure. So I didn't go outside and I became obese, right? I didn't play outside in the summertime and it made me insecure. So when I went to school the very next semester, I had picked up a lot of weight, and the people around me who thought they were being funny called me fat. And what happened was that was my identity. That was my label. That was the new pot that somebody had labeled me with, and I wore it the entire year. So just because somebody calls you something doesn't mean you have to continue to wear that label. I'm telling you a story from the 7th grade, and this is some 38 years later. You see how some things can happen in your childhood and you still live those things out until you allow somebody to come and reposition you, to repot you, to replant you, to help you understand that your potential and your growth is going to come after you allow somebody to come and shear all the extra growth, all the things that have grown from your pain, all the things that have grown from your insecurities, all the things that have grown from your pride. You understand? Because sometimes we can go from being insecure to being puffed up. Sometimes because we had reached a great goal, a great physical accomplishment, a great academic accomplishment, because somebody called us dumb one day, and then now we graduated and can't nobody tell us nothing now. You see how this works? So I'm here today to help you understand that you no longer have to live by somebody else's definition of you. You no longer have to stay in the same pot that somebody placed you in. You don't have to live by the same standards, the same label that somebody put you in so they could be comfortable. So finally, when you allow yourself to be repotted, when you allow yourself to be replanted, when you allow yourself to be pruned, what can happen is now you'll experience new growth. You'll experience new friends. You'll experience new relationships. Because what I found out from the beginning of this story, when I replanted my pot, I actually see more bee activity, recognizing that bees are more attracted to this plant after I repotted it. Because before I potted it, it was just a plant in a pot. But now that we took some time to nurture it, we took some time to replant it, we took some time to add more soil, we took some time to put it positioned in the sun. Now bees are attracted to it. Now I don't want to get you all caught up on planting. Unless you want to give me some plants, you can do that. But I want you to understand something, that people are attracted to growth. People are attracted to people who aren't afraid to get out of their comfort zones. People are attracted to people who understand that I once was there, but now I'm no longer there, and I'm living my life. Life is too short, wise friends, to live in a space and a place where we're complacent, that we know we're not happy where we are, but we continue to stay in the same pot. We won't let people in to help us grow because we're afraid of the last people we let us in that they hurt us. I feel sorry for your pain. I don't minimize your pain. But in order for us to go forward, we've got to let people in to help us grow. The best environment that I have for my plants, I have a couple, but my most healthy plants are not the plants that are by themselves. My most healthy plants are the ones that are in the sun, on the windowsill, in good company of other healthy plants. Whenever one of my plants don't really look healthy and they look like they're struggling, I remove them from my healthy plants. Not for segregation purposes, nothing like that, but I want my healthy plants to see healthy plants. Because in order for you to continue to remain healthy, you need to have company of healthy things. So I want those plants that are healthy to have company of good plants. Those plants that are dying, they're not producing the same amount of oxygen. They're not putting off the same kind of chemicals that my healthy plants need. So I want healthy plants around my healthy plants. Here's the kicker. So my healthy plants can remain strong. So my healthy plants can be the example. So my healthy plants can continue to remind me that I planted something and it's growing. I planted something and I watered it and it continues to thrive. It's not so I can have trophies of how many plants I have, but it's a daily reminder to me that anything that I want to grow, it has to be watered. Anything that I want to grow, I have to position it properly so it gets the nutrients that it needs to continue to grow. And that's the series of my life. I want to make certain that I'm being fed in my spirit. I want to make certain that I'm in the right position so I can serve and I can help people. Because what else is my life for if I'm not here to bless the world? So today, I want you to be encouraged to know that wise people, it's okay for you to be repositioned. It's okay for you to understand that you're being replanted. Being repositioned and replanted is scary. Being repositioned and replanted can be painful. But the rewards are endless. You never know your potential until you get out of that tight pot. You never know how far you can grow until you get out of that job that's just enough for you not to quit. They're paying you just enough not to quit and paying you just enough so you can't retire. So we may be in situations that we think are accomplishments, but ultimately they're keeping us from our goals. So I want to encourage you today to continue to press on towards the mark of the high calling, which is in Christ Jesus. I want you to know that things are going to happen. They're going to make you feel like you're being removed, you're being replaced, that you're being set back, but ultimately you're just being replanted. Ultimately, you're just being repositioned. Ultimately, you're being set up for future growth. That's my word for today. I pray that it was encouraging to you. It's been a blessing to me. I want you to have a wonderful day and a blessed week. This is Ray with Wisdom on Wednesday. Don't be afraid to be repositioned. Take care.